Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Jirou was Izuku's girlfriend, part 2. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Akakis22, link is in the description, also subscribe to our channel, and like this video, so let's begin the video. So what do you think All Might Sensei has planned for us this afternoon? Hagakure inquired to the group as she dug into her meal. It was once again Thursday, and the students of Class 1 were enjoying their lunch and getting ready for their weekly practical training exercise. Midoriya and Jirou were currently sitting with Hagakure, Kirishima, Iida, Uraraka, Ashido, and Todoroki. A mix-up from the usual groups that everyone spends their lunch period with. Despite her slip-up on Monday, the last 3 days went by pretty smooth for the purple-haired heroine in training. She was able to push any stray thoughts that she was having to the back of her mind. Luckily for her, she avoided any similarly embarrassing moments with a certain green-haired classmate. I have no idea. Ashido added. Hopefully it's not more combat training, Jirou. Sayu plugged in. Why not Asu, I mean Su-chan. I feel as though that's all we've been doing the past few weeks. I know the focus this month is all combat related, but it would be nice to show what I can do with something else. I am trying to be a rescue hero after all. I can understand Su. But, as UA students, we have to be well versed in all aspects of heroics. Besides, our syllabus for next month is pretty heavy on rescue training. Iida put in his 2 cents while waving his hands in his typical manner. Whatever it is, it's going to take all afternoon. I honestly don't care, as long as I don't have to go up against someone strong like Bakugo or Todoroki, or even Midoriya. Pinket added, as everyone directed their attention towards the green-haired student. Oddly enough for them, he wasn't paying attention. Midoriya wore a blank expression on his face as he stared down at the table. Hey, Midoriya. Midoriya. Earth to Deku, Uraraka said while giving the boy a light shake. What's up? You alright, Deku? You've been kind of out of it today. Oh yeah, I'm just tired. Midoriya, although, as your friend I am concerned for your well-being, you must ensure that you're getting proper rest every night. A UA student must never let his fatigue distract him from his duties in the classroom. Yeah, I know, Iida-kun. Don't worry about it though, I'll be fine once we start our training this afternoon. He replied to the engine quirk user. They continued with regular conversation for the next 10 minutes before the bell rang, signaling that it was time to return to class. Alright class, listen up. All Might began. We did have some rescue training planned for you guys today. But, due to the third-year students destroying ground beta, we're switching it up and having you do one-on-one combat drills with each other. He continued while pulling a box from underneath the desk. A not-so-subtle groan could be heard coming from Sayu. Alright. Kirishima cheered while throwing a fist in the air. Indeed. Matchups will be decided at random. I'm going to pull your student numbers out from this box, and whichever 2 numbers I draw will be the pairing. The retired hero continued as he began shaking out the box. The students watched patiently while the former symbol of peace began drawing the numbers. First up are numbers 19 and 15, young Mineta and young Todoroki. Oh come on. The shorter student complained in reaction to the matchup. Be your best, young Mineta. Now, matchup number 2. Students number 18 and 8, young Midoriya and young Kirishima. Don't hold back, Midoriya, a real man gives it his all. Kirishima said to Midoriya with a toothy grin. Yeah, you too, Kirishima-san. He replied. Jirou let out a small sigh of relief when she heard the names called. Of all the people she didn't want to go up against, Midoriya and Todoroki was near the top of the list. She was fairly decent when it came to combat training, but going up against the top students would be a problem. As long as Bakugo's name wasn't called with hers, she knew she actually stood a chance. While All Might continued to read off more numbers, Jirou waited patiently. Who would she be going up against? Alright, matchup number 7. Students 12 and 5, young Jirou and young Uraraka. He stated. Jirou turned her head to look in the direction of her brunette classmate. To the purple-haired girl's surprise, her eyes were met with a look that she wasn't prepared for. Uraraka's face was one of pure intensity, you could almost see her aura emanating from her body. Oh man, what's with her? Jirou thought to herself as she looked away from the girl, trying to avoid the awkwardness she felt. When All Might finished reading off the names, he instructed the students to get into their hero costumes and meet him at the training grounds, and that they would begin once everyone was present. As expected of the first matchup, it was over in a matter of seconds. Todoroki froze Mineta in a block of ice before the class perv could even get his hands up to his head to release his quirk. The scene gave most of the girls in the class a good laugh. Wasting no time, All Might sent Midoriya and Kirishima to the battle area and informed them to wait until the signal to begin. The 2 boys left the room shortly after. Who are you going to, kyoka? Wait, don't tell me I already know the answer, haha. Ashido chirped, giving the purple-haired girl a slight nudge to the shoulder. Quit playing around, Mina. It's a pretty even fight, so I'm not taking sides. In any case, I am curious to see how this one goes. Yaoi Rozu jumped in. From what I've been told, Kirishima has a new form to his quirk, and we've yet to see Midoriya actually go all out in a fight. That's a good point, Yamomo. I kinda wanna see his full cowling in action. It doesn't matter, Raccoon Eyes, Deku will still lose. Bakugo shouted from the back of the viewing area, the rest of class turning around for a brief second to see the sandy blonde's typical angry expression. Deciding to pay him no mind, Jirou focused her attention back to the screen that was locked on Midoriya. She was also curious as to how he would do in this fight. Ever since gaining his new transformation, the class minus the ones who took part in the Yakuza raid hasn't seen him in any real action. He was faster and stronger than before, and it was a relief knowing he wasn't going to break his bones every time he activated his quirk. Jirou couldn't help but find it somewhat ridiculous that he was only able to comfortably use just 15% of his power. She was glad that Midoriya was so dedicated to becoming a hero, because if he ever decided to go down the path of villainy, she doubted anyone could really stop him. All Might gave the signal for the two boys to begin once they entered the designated area, and they took no time in getting right to the good part. Kirishima was throwing a flurry of punches Midoriya's way, while the quirk inheritor did his best to dodge the hardened fists. Although his quirk was useful for a slugfist, Kirishima was at a clear disadvantage when it came to speed and mobility. As Midoriya continued dodging punches, he was doing his best to make an opening long enough for him to let off a smash, but the Redeed wasn't letting up. If I keep you in front of me, then you won't get a chance to blow me away, bro. The hardening quirk user shouted to his opponent as he went for an uppercut that failed to hit its mark. Midoriya didn't bother responding as he was too busy staying away from Kirishima's fists. The fight went on for roughly another 5 minutes with a stalemate ensuing. Kirishima was beginning to tire out, but he wasn't letting up. The class was in awe of the sight before them. Impressed not only by Kirishima's stamina, which was noticeably improved, but by the speed and ease in which Midoriya was able to keep dodging. Man, Kirishima's really laying it on thick. Kaminari commented with excitement in his eyes. No kidding, he usually would have tired out by now. Ashido interjected. I guess all that training he's been doing with Jirou paid off. Satu added. Jirou herself was glued to the screen enough to not hear what anyone else was saying. She was too busy watching the display of sheer willpower going on in front of her face. Before anyone else could comment, the tide of the fight quickly turned as Midoriya decided that now was the time to go on the offensive. He began letting off a flurry of well-placed kicks to Kirishima's body and head. Even though his quirk was still activated, it was easy to tell that those hits were doing some damage to the hardened skin of their retired classmate. As Midoriya began bouncing off the walls and driving his feet into his opponent, a few cheers were heard from the students who were undoubtedly betting on the green-haired boy. You got this, Deku. Uraraka shouted towards the screen. What the heck is that? Kaminari said a few seconds later as everyone got a good look at what was going on in front of them. He looks like something out of a nightmare. Siro added as the class witnessed Kirishima burst out his unbreakable form in response to the damage he was taking. Is that his new move? Yaoi Rozu, it looks like quite the power-up. The students continued watching the bout in awe but weren't prepared for what happened next. As Midoriya lunged toward Kirishima, the Redeed swiped his right arm towards him. Midoriya was barely able to get out of the way of the attack in time, but was close enough to get a part of his chest caught in the unbreakable student's hand. The contact caused the boy's jacket to almost completely tear off of his body, leaving his chest and upper abdomen completely exposed. Midoriya paused for a moment as he looked down at the tattered rag that was once his hero costume, a slight blush rising to his cheeks. Hot damn, Midoriya is jacked. Hagakure blurted out at the sight of the now semi-shirtless boy on the screen. Seriously, it looks like he bulked up a bit. Jirou added. Man, Kyoka, if you aren't gonna make a move on him, I might have Ashido stop mid-sentence as she turned her head towards her classmate. Somewhat surprised by what she saw, Jirou's face was redder than she had previously thought possible. If that wasn't bad enough, the look of pure shock wasn't helping her either. Her eyes were wide as saucers and her mouth was slightly gaped open as her vision was locked in on the image in front of her. There was Midoriya, shirtless, with all of his muscles showing, the sweat glistening off his chest just enough for the camera to make out. Whatever thoughts Jirou had before taking in the sight had completely abandoned her mind, and now she was as still as a statue. For whatever reason, she found it difficult to look away as the boy began charging back into the fight. The warm feeling was descending on her top lip and Jirou swore she could taste metal for some reason. Kyoka, huh? She snapped back to reality at the mention of her name. Your nose, you're bleeding. Yaoi Rozu continued, motioning her finger to her top lip to mirror her purple-haired friend. What? Your nose? She said once again. As Jirou finally realized what was happening, she wiped her right hand across her mouth to see a not-so-subtle amount of blood running down her fingers. She took a second to look around only to see the gazes of Kaminari, Yaoi Rozu, and Ashido. The latter had a smirk on her face. Oh my god. The earphone jack user screams internally as she does her best to cover her face. Hoping to avoid any more looks, Jirou turned on her heels and began making a beeline for the door a few meters away from her back. I have to go to the bathroom, I'll be back, she said as she exited the area. Oh, I'm never letting her live this down. Ashido whispered with a chuckle, leaning on Yaoi Rozu. Shouldn't someone go check on her? Kaminer inquired with concern in his voice. She'll be fine, dude. She just needs a moment, that's all. If there was an emotion that superseded embarrassment, then that's what Jirou would be feeling right now. Hell, she wasn't even sure if embarrassment was even the right word to use in this situation. The purple-haired girl was currently in the locker room desperately trying to rub away at the red liquid that decided to make its way onto her face minutes ago. Finally, taking a moment to assess that the bleeding had stopped, she grabbed a paper towel from the dispenser to her right and shoved it up her right nostril, hoping to stop any future leaking. Come on, Kyoka, pull yourself together, she said to herself. What the hell was that? What the actual hell was that? I can't believe that it seriously just happened in front of everyone. All it takes is for me to look at one shirtless guy and I start getting a nosebleed like some pervy old man, or even worse, Mineta. I can't go back out there, not after that. Oh man, Mina is not going to let me hear the end of this. She continued while splashing cold water onto her face in hopes of getting rid of the lingering redness that for some reason wasn't going away. Before she could try anything else, the locker room door flew open. Looking behind her, Jirou let out a harsh sing as she laid eyes on who it was that entered. It was Yaoi Rozu and Ashido standing in the doorway, both sharing the same concerned expressions on their faces as they got a glimpse of their friend. Are you okay, Kyoka? You've been here for almost 10 minutes. Yaoi Rozu inquired. Seriously, everyone was starting to get kind of worried. Ashido chimed in. Yeah, I'm fine. I just wasn't feeling too well. I'm good now. I'm sure you are, haha. What's that supposed to mean? Oh come on, Kyoka, don't play dumb. All it took was one good look at Midoriya's half-naked body and you froze up like a block of ice. I don't even want to know what was going through your head that caused your nose to start bleeding like that. Mina, I swear, she's right, Kyoka. Yaoi Rozu interjected. Luckily no one else besides Kaminari saw you, but it was pretty obvious what happened. Look guys, this really isn't the time for your stupid jokes. We know, that's why we're going to address this once we're done with classes today. Huh? Yamomo's right. Look Kyoka, you can deny it all you want, but the truth of the matter is that you totally have the hots for Midoriya. You may be telling yourself that you don't, but from the way you reacted to that, your body doesn't agree. I can't blame you though, the dude is pretty fucking sexy. Mina. Yaoi Rozu interjected at her horned friend's language. What? I was just telling the truth. Listen, you two. Jirou paused trying to find the right words to say in response, but nothing was coming out. What could come out? There wasn't any excuse that she could think of that would satisfy her two friends. Let alone herself. Look, we can talk about all of this later in the dorms. Right now I suggest that we head back before the next match starts. The match is already over? Jirou inquired. Yeah, you should have seen it in Kyoka. Midoriya totally knocked Kirishima out. He did this wicked over-the-head axe kick and Kirishima was out for the count. Ashido said with excitement. Jirou was sad to say that she didn't get to see it herself. Let's just head back. Please. Match number 7, kyoka Jiro vs Ichako Uraraka, begins. The loudspeaker blared as the matchup began. I can't let her get the drop on me. If I can get her close enough then I'll be able to use my amps. Jirou thought to herself as she eyed up the brunette a few meters in front of her. When it comes to tricky opponents, then Uraraka was near the top of the list. Her quirk allowed her to utilize long-range attacks with relative ease, allowed her to fly for short distances, and even worse was she was pretty good when it came to hand-to-hand combat. Although she wasn't on the level of Midoriya or Jirou, Jirou knew that she didn't want this battle to come to an MMA match. Looking around the area, Jirou did her best to take mental notes of her surroundings. There were enough small walls and open spaces for her to have an advantage. The less loose debris around, the less ammo the brunette had to work with. But before she could even think of a proper plan, Uraraka made the first move. Using her quirk to propel herself forward, Uraraka made a beeline straight for Jirou, getting in close enough to almost grab the girl by the collar. Luckily for Jirou, she reacted in time and slipped to her right, avoiding her hands. Uraraka used her right leg to swing a follow-up kick but was off balance just enough for Jirou to block it with her hands and throw the girl further down the area to make some space. I need a plan, she told herself while doing her best to avoid the brunette's offensive attacks. The game of ducking and dodging went on for what seemed like an eternity to Jirou. She was doing her best to counter Uraraka's attacks but was getting nowhere in terms of strategy. As another kick came flying towards her face, Jirou put up her left arm to block. The force of the contact with Uraraka's boot was enough to dislodge the amplifier on Jiro's wrist. Luckily for the purple-haired girl, she reacted fast enough to catch it with her right hand. She quickly plugged in an earphone jack into her left boot and sent out a low-grade sound wave in the direction of the brunette, sending her opponent flying a few meters away. Not one to waste an opportunity, Jirou darted over to a low wall to her right, hiding behind cover just before Uraraka was able to see where she had gone. Looking down at her now severed amplifier, Jirou took a moment to calm herself. She needed a plan, and she needed it now. Come on Kyoka, think. What would Izuku do at a time like this? She thought, as she continued staring at her amplifier. Just then an idea sparked into her head. It was risky, but it was her best bet at ending this battle. Taking a minute to regain herself, Uraraka stood up and searched the surrounding area. Knowing that Jirou couldn't have gotten far, she elected to take to the air to look for her opponent. Their designated battle area was relatively large, but small enough to where there were only a few hiding places available to them. As she scanned her eyes over the terrain, Uraraka noticed Jirou standing up from behind a small concrete barrier. "I've got you now," she yelled as she descended down, heading straight for her purple-haired classmate. "Heartbeat surround," Jirou yelled while lifting up her earphone jacks from behind her. Her amplifiers were attached at both ends, manipulating them in a way that made them float. Just then she released her quirk, sending a series of sound waves in a multitude of directions. The force of the noise was enough to completely disorient Uraraka almost to the point of fainting. As the brunette's body hit the ground, Jirou paused for a moment just in case her classmate still had some fight with her. With a half-baked last attempt at a lunge, the brunette fell back down to the ground, not moving again. "Winner. kyoka Jiro." All Might's voice boomed from the loudspeakers, signaling the end of the fight. Jirou rushed over to Uraraka to check to see if she was okay. Fortunately, the girl was still conscious, albeit dazed from being on the receiving end of her attack. Jirou extended out a hand to help the girl up, a sign of good sportsmanship. "I'm fine." Uraraka hissed at the girl, a look of annoyance on her face. "Oh, sorry," Jirou responded, taken aback by the apparent hostility. "Don't worry about it," the brunette replied as she stood up, dusted herself off, and began her walk back to the training area, leaving Jirou with a confused look on her face. What's her deal? The long-awaited final bell of the day couldn't come fast enough for the students of Class 1A. The one-on-one training took a lot more out of them than was expected. Kirishima, Siro, and Aoyama never even made it back to the classroom due to having to spend the rest of their day in Recovery Girl's office, the latter drawing the short straw of the class and having to go up against Bakugo. As she made her way out of the classroom, Jirou pulled out her phone to pick a song to listen to on the way back to the dorms. But before she could pick one to her liking, she felt a tap on her left shoulder. Turning around to see none other than Midoriya, giving her his usually cheerful smile. "You did great out there today in Kyoka. That move you did with your amplifiers was amazing." "Thanks Izuku," she replied, trying to avoid direct eye contact with the boy. Ever since her little mishap earlier that day, the girl had been avoiding him like the plague. Despite her protest every time she looked at him, the picture of Midoriya earlier in his fight plunged itself back into her mind. It was already bad enough for Jirou that a conversation she did not want to have was waiting for her once she got back to the building, but the one person that she didn't want to talk to was now right next to her. "Don't mention it." "Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question?" "Sure." "Did something happen to Uraraka-san after your guys' fight?" She seemed kind of upset after that. "I don't know dude. She seemed okay to me," she said while still looking away from him. Jirou was also curious about the brunette's behavior, but jumping to conclusions wasn't a good idea. Maybe Uraraka was just having a bad day. Hoping to change the subject, Jirou switched topics. "Speaking of weird, what was with you this morning?" "What do you mean? You're usually pretty upbeat and alert in the mornings, is something up?" "I don't really know. It's hard to explain." "Really?" "Yeah, I think it has to do with my quirk." Jirou's interest was now piqued at the mention of the quirk inheritor's words. Despite being the entire reason for their friendship, the two rarely ever talked about One for All. The last time she could remember the topic being brought up was a couple of weeks ago. "What's up?" Jirou asked as she looked around the two of them, making sure to see that no one was within earshot of their conversation, while simultaneously activating her quirk to confirm that there wasn't any else around. Luckily, the two were almost completely alone, except for some students at the other end of the hall in the opposite direction. "Last night I had this dream," the freckled boy began. "I don't know how to describe it, but it was like I was looking at the memories of the original one," he continued. Jirou noticed his speech pattern enough to see that he was avoiding saying anything specific while still out in the open. "That's weird, have you talked to sensei about it?" she replied, purposefully avoiding saying All Might's name out loud. "Yeah, he was just as confused as me. He said something similar happened to him a while ago, but not like the one I had." Well, whatever it is, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Jiro's words were interrupted when she felt her right shoulder come into contact with something. Turning around to see what had happened, the purple-haired girl looked down to see a student with black hair, red skin, and glasses on the ground in front of her. She had never seen the student before, so obviously that meant she was either an upperclassman or in some other course than her. "Oh my, sorry about that," the unique-looking girl stated as she stood herself up. "I was looking down at my phone when I turned the corner, so I wasn't paying attention. Sorry. It's fine, don't worry about it," Jirou reassured the girl, who was now frantically picking up her books off of the ground. "Oh, alright then, I didn't mean to interrupt your conversation. Sorry again, see you two around," the ruby-skinned student said before darting off in the other direction. "She seemed a little bit off, don't you think?" Jirou asked. "I couldn't really tell. But her appearance is really cool. I wonder what her quirk is." "You never stop, do you?" "I guess not." "Oh hey, did you want to study again tonight?" "Oh, I can't tonight. Mina and Momo wanted to hang out and I promised them that I'd be there. Maybe some other time." "Alright then. I thought I told you to check in with me twice a day, Toga. What the hell have you been doing?" The voice of Tamura Shigaraki spoke from the shadows. "Calm down, Shigaraki, I'm only a couple of hours late. It's not like anyone would find me out anyway. In the future, make sure that you're on time." "So, what have you got?" "Well, I've only been here for about a week, but from what I can tell, security has gotten pretty lax." "Good, now what about him?" "Oh, Izuku, he still looks as adorable as ever. I just can't wait to get my hands on him. But he's been hanging around some flat-chested girl with weird ears, it makes me want to stab that bitch. But I can wait, haha." "Interesting. In any case, I think it's about time we let our new recruit make his debut, don't you think?" "Oh, sounds like fun. Come on, Kyoka, open the door." Ishido begged for what felt like the fourth time in the last 2 minutes. She, along with Yaoi Rozu, were standing outside the room of a certain purple-haired classmate of theirs. "Eyes, I really don't want to talk right now." Jirou responded to the door, hoping that they would leave. As much as she was expecting it, this was a conversation that the earphone jack user wanted to avoid. The topic of this impending meeting of the minds was one that she wasn't too comfortable with at all. After what happened earlier during class, Jirou just wanted to curl up into a ball and never come back out of her room again. Yaoi Rozu was pretty tamed when it came to stuff like this, but she knew Ishido would have a field day with that kind of ammo. "Well, too bad. If you don't open the door, then Yamomo is just going to make a key and we're coming anyway." "Mina, I couldn't. Doing such a thing would violate so many rules and Kyoka's privacy." "Just work with me here, girl," Ishido whispered to her taller classmate. "We wouldn't actually do it." "Oh, I see. You guys aren't going away anytime soon, are you?" Jirou asked the two girls through her door. "Nope," they answered in unison. "Alright," the purple-haired girl conceded, dragging her way to the door. Upon opening it, she was met with the gazes of her two classmates and their curious attire. Ishido was dressed in her workout clothes consisting of a form-fitting blue tank top and some black shorts, holding a rather large tub of ice cream with 3 spoons in the opposite hand. Yaoi Rozu was sporting a black polo shirt and khaki pants while holding a few books in her hands. All of the titles appeared to be in English, which left Jirou unable to read them. Without a word, the two girls let themselves into the room and immediately made themselves comfortable, Ishido sitting at the foot of Jirou's bed and Yaoi Rozu taking a seat at the girl's desk. "Look guys, like I said earlier, this is Ju." "Nope, I don't want to hear it," Ishido interrupted. "We're here to help you handle your not-so-little crush on Midoriya, and by God we're not leaving until we do. Or until this ice cream runs out, whichever happens first." "Mina is right in Kyoka. We're your friends and we're here to help, even if you don't want us to," Yaoi Rozu added. "Guys, I don't have a crush on Izuku. I don't understand why you think I do," Jirou said while trying to hide her face. Her words were more focused on trying to convince herself rather than her two friends. "Come on, dude. You two start hanging out together out of nowhere. Toru's already caught you stealing looks at him during class. You have at least 2 study sessions a week. You're on a first-name basis with each other. You said yourself that you thought he was cute and you damn near went into shock when you saw his body this afternoon during training. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you two were already dating." They rambled on, pausing to take a bite out of the mint ice cream in between her lap. "She has a point, Kyoka. Well, you don't know any better, Mina. And I can say the same about the two of you. Momo, let's not pretend that you haven't had a thing for kendo since we did the internships. And Mina, don't even get me started on how bad you have it for Kirishima. Hey, don't try and turn this on us." Ishido puffed her cheeks out in protest. "Besides, I would have already made a move on him if I wasn't so sure that he was totally gay for that asshole Bakugo." "Look you guys, we're getting off topic here," the black-haired teen interjected while trying to hide the obvious blush on her face. "Yanomamo is right. Come on, Kyoka, tell us. What exactly is so bad about having a crush on Midoriya?" Ishido's inquiry halted Jiro's thoughts. There wasn't really a good answer to that question. There also wasn't anything inherently bad about having a crush on him. He's obviously a good person with his head on straight, he's not drop-dead gorgeous, but he's definitely an attractive guy, he's smart, in great shape, and always puts others above himself. By all measures Midoriya would be perfect boyfriend material. But something about it still didn't sit right with Jirou. They'd only really known each other for a little over 3 weeks. Sure, they have been classmates for months, but they almost never interacted before the day that she confronted him about One for All. Wouldn't it be strange to have developed feelings for someone so soon? Her knowledge about music was almost genius level, but when it came to relationships and emotions such as these, Jirou might as well be as dumb as Kaminari after going over his wattage limit. Hello Earth to Kyoka, are you still with us here? Huh? You seem to be pretty deep in thought there. Were you thinking about a certain someone? Shut up Mina. Calm down, I was just joking. But if you're serious about not being interested in him then that's fine. That just means that I won't feel bad for asking him out myself. The acid quirk user said as she pulled out her phone. What? Both Jirou and Yaoi Rozu said in unison. Yeah, if you're not going to make a move on him that doesn't mean that I can't. I'm just going to text him and see if he's busy with this. Ishido couldn't finish her sentence before the bright pink cell phone was snatched out of her hands by Jirou, leaving all three of them with the same surprised look on their faces. My goodness, Kyoka, I never pegged you for the jealous type. Yaoi Rozu chuckled. Jirou stuttered out. Why did I just do that? You're right Yamomo, green is more of Midoriya's color. Ishido laughed. Was that really it? Was even the mention of someone else making a pass at Midoriya enough for her body to spring into action like that? Although she never regarded herself as an envious person, Jirou did notice her body tense up at hearing her friend's joke. The thought of Ishido asking out Midoriya leaves an uneasy feeling in her gut. I'm sorry, here, don't sweat it. But you're not really helping your case here. Okay, the earphone jack user sighed knowing she was about to step into dangerous territory. Hypothetically, if I were to say that I have feelings for Izuku, what would we do about it? Our first step would be to see if he likes you back, then set you two up on a date. Hypothetically speaking, of course. This time it was Yaoi Rozu's turn to speak up. And how would we go about finding out if he does or doesn't feel the same way? We'd ask someone close to him to get that information. So who would that be, still hypothetically speaking? Then it would be either Ida or Todoroki. Those two would be our best bet for this hypothetical plan of ours. Seriously? Geez, can you two stop with hypotheticals already? It's annoying as hell. Ida and Todoroki are the only two people that would make sense. They're the only other boys in class that he's good friends with, so they're our best bet. That's the gist of it. The creation quirk user nodded to Ishido's outburst. For all intents and purposes it was a pretty straightforward plan, Jirou thought. Getting the information early from a third party to gauge where the boy's feelings were was smart and safe. Ida and Todoroki were his two closest male friends in class. They all fought a hero killer together and made it out alive, a feat that still amazes Jirou to this day, even though she technically wasn't supposed to know about it. With any luck the trio could find a way to get them to go along with this plan without letting them on to their true intentions. Suddenly Jirou's heart began to flutter. Was she really willing to go through with this? Agreeing to this half-assed scheme cooked up by Ishido would pretty much be pulling the pin on changing her and Midoriya's relationship for good. If things didn't work out or something went wrong, then the two might not even be able to be around each other. It was bad enough that she already put herself in his private life once, but what about this? What if the quirk inheritor didn't have any feelings towards her? Midoriya was a good friend, and now Jirou would be putting that friendship in jeopardy. She looked up to see Yaoi Rozu and Ishido staring at her, the impatience in their faces was too hard not to notice. She mulled over her thoughts once again for a brief second before finally coming to her conclusion. Oh fuck it, alright, what? Ishido inquired. Let's do it. Wait, are you saying what I think you're saying? Yaoi Rozu asked with much surprise in her tone. Yes. Our little Kyoka finally accepted her feelings. It's not that serious Momo. She's right, this is great. We're one step closer to making you two the cutest couple in the UA. Whatever. Look guys, can we just keep this between us, please? No problem dude, we don't need anyone ruining our plan. God forbid Uraraka catches wind of this. Yeah, that would be bad for us. Yaoi Rozu agreed. Why? Don't play dumb Kyoka, you know she's had it bad for Midoriya all year, but has never acted on it. If you ask me she's missed her chance. Ishido said with a rather neutral look on her face. Oh I guess you're right. Even though Ishido appeared indifferent about it, Jirou on the other hand was anything but. It was pretty well known amongst the girls of Class 1 that Uraraka harbors feelings towards Midoriya, no matter how much she protested. Suddenly the thought popped into her head. Does Izuku have a thing for her? She was his first actual friend in the UA. And due to his quirkless nature growing up, his first actual friend since he was a little kid. It wouldn't be a surprise to anyone if they both possessed romantic feelings towards one another. Uraraka's feelings were pretty well known, but Midoriya's were not. Anything typical for a guy that would indicate a crush towards a girl could be chalked up to the quirk inheritor's naturally skittish and introverted behavior, so it was impossible to pinpoint. The thought of all this was palpable for Jirou, as she felt a sudden tightness in her chest. Could Midoriya seriously have feelings for the brunette? As much as she would like to just come out and ask the boy, she couldn't. Not only would something like that potentially cause him to have a heart attack, it would just be too embarrassing for her. For now, she would just have to put those thoughts to the side and cross that bridge when she got there. Of course I am. Now, before we do anything else, let's hurry and finish this ice cream because it's starting to melt. For the students of Class 1A, Wednesdays were relatively relaxed when it came to heroics. Other classes were scheduled in all of the other training areas in the school, and All Might typically had some sort of hero-related lecture prepared for the class. Fortunately for the would-be heroes, today was the one day of the month where they were allowed to head down to the development studio and adjust their hero costumes. A day that a certain quirk inheritor was looking forward to. After his wardrobe malfunction yesterday, Midoriya decided that it was time to once again upgrade his suit. The bracers for his arms and legs were still very much operable, but his jumpsuit was completely torn to shreds. Thankfully he had the rest of the school day to get everything in order. As he made his way out of the classroom, the unmistakably cheery voice of Ishido called out to him. "Yo Midoriya, you're heading down to the development studio now, right?" "Yes, Ishido-san." "Awesome, let's head down there together." "Sure." The boy nervously agreed, the two wasting no time to make their way down to the shop. The pair garnered the attention of a few of their classmates, most notably a certain purple-haired girl who was currently sandwiched in a conversation between Zero and Kaminari. The 3-minute walk it took was awkward to say the least for Midoriya and Ishido, with almost no talking in between them. Although they were well acquainted, they too weren't exactly what you would call friends. Their personalities were at total opposite ends of the spectrum, which didn't help when it came to casual conversation. "So I'm not supposed to ask you this, but it's eating me up inside. Midoriya, do you have feelings for Kyoka?" All of space, time, and reality seemed to blend together for a single moment. Or at least that's what it felt like to Midoriya, who almost fainted at the words that he was just asked. Ishido had to do everything she could for him not to immediately face the plant into the ground. What? Do you have feelings for Kyoka? It's a pretty simple question, dude. I don't. Yes or no? What kind of question is that, Ishido-san? I don't understand. Because dude, she has a crush on you, and I'm trying to set you guys up on a date. Don't tell her I told you though. At this point in time you wouldn't even need super hearing to hear the rumbling of Midoriya's heart about to jump out of his chest. Did she really just say that? He thought to himself while trying to hold off another fainting spell. He wasn't really sure what to do, let alone what to think. His head was spinning, the air suddenly got cold, and any saliva that was in his mouth had suddenly vanished. Midoriya. What? He responded, snapping back to the reality that he was currently in. Look, I'm sorry for just dropping this on you like that, but I couldn't wait any longer. So what's your answer? Words were failing him, the only thing the green-haired boy could do was nod his head up and down. His action caused them to let out a small cheer, drawing the attention of a few students that walked past them in the hall. Really? Alright, this was way easier than I thought it was going to be. So tell me, how long have you liked our rocker friend? Come on dude, I gotta know. A little while, he said, trying to hide the intensity of the embarrassment on his face. It wasn't a total lie though. For Midoriya, the last 4 or 5 days were pretty much spent trying to suppress those feelings altogether. Although Midoriya wasn't an expert on romance, he wasn't a total novice either. He was aware enough to know that ever since that day in the park where he first revealed One for All and hanging around the purple-haired girl, that he had begun developing an attraction to her. He tried his best to hide this fact as best he could, even taking extra steps to make sure that he acted just as casually with her as he would with any other classmates of his. Every day the boy would do his best to remain as neutral as he could around Jirou. Fortunately for him, no one, up until now, had been able to catch on to him. Man, who knew that shy old Midoriya would actually have an interest in something other than heroes and quirks? Ishido joked while slapping the boy on the shoulder. Please don't tell her, Ishido-san. I don't want things to be weird between us. Oh, don't worry about it, my broccoli-headed friend, I'm not going to tell her a thing. You are. What? Yup, you're going to tell her yourself. So go ahead and cancel whatever you have planned for this Saturday, because that's when your date is. Date? Whoa, Ishido-san, calm down, don't you think No Midoriya, I don't think that it's too much too soon. The two of you like each other and there's no reason for you not to go out. I guess you're right. Of course I am, Midoriya. So what do you say, are you in or are you out? She said, leaning into the boy's face. The intensity of her black sclera and yellower eyes is matched only by the intensity of her smile. "I'm in," he whispered, completely failing to hide the redness on his face. "Awesome, now listen up. We never had this conversation, okay? What? If Kyoka finds out that I told you, then she's going to be pissed. So for the time being, just pretend that you don't know anything and just wait for her to ask you out. Alright, Ashido-san." The boy shakily agreed. If there was one thing Mina Ashido loved more than dancing, it was playing matchmaker. Ever since her middle school days, the pink-skinned hero in training relished in the feeling of getting people together. One would say that it was somewhat of a hobby for her, and this was no different. This time, however, there was a problem. Midoriya and Jirou, an odd pair to say the least. It goes without saying that out of any two combinations of students in Class 1A, this was one of the least likely pairings that the girl could have conceived. Although he is strong and very dependable, Midoriya was shy, skittish, nerdy, and introverted. Jirou, on the other hand, was a different story. The earphone jack user was much more sociable, aloof, and less high-strung. The two were almost completely perpendicular to one another, and that was the problem. Ashido prided herself on being able to expertly craft the perfect date for any two individuals, but this time she was at a dead end. The two's interests just didn't line up the way she had hoped. Jirou was certainly not into any of the nerdy stuff Midoriya fancied, and Midoriya just didn't seem like the type of guy who would like to spend his time at a concert or rock studio. As she racked her brain for anything that could help, Ashido began forming a checklist inside her mind, trying to picture and cross off any idea that came to mind. What can we get them to do that they would both enjoy? She thought again, still getting nowhere. How can we combine Kyoka's love of music and deal with Midoriya's shyness? Suddenly the bulb over the pinkette's head went off. "That's it," Ashido cheered, jumping up off of the bed. Startling her friends. "What?" Jirou and Yaoyorozu inquired about the girl's sudden outburst. The trio was currently in the very brightly decorated room of Mina Ashido, trying to get their way through their English homework. "I've finally figured it out. The perfect first date for you and Midoriya. Mina, we're supposed to be studying, not devising more harebrained schemes." The earphone jack user responded, not impressed by what she was hearing. "Actually, Kyoka, I'm really interested in what she had planned." "You can't be serious." "Of course I am." "So Mina, what have you got?" "Periok," she blurted out, as if she just won the Nobel Prize. Looking down to see her friend's deadpan expressions. "You really think that's such a good idea?" "Yeah, Izuku definitely isn't the type to go in front of a group of people and sing. I know that already. But there's this karaoke spot near Mustafa that has private soundproof rooms for anyone who wants to go. And it's pretty cheap." "Oh my Mina, that's a wonderful idea. It combines Kyoka's love of music and takes care of the problem of Midoriya's shyness." "I know, right? And once Kyoka and Midoriya are done serenading each other, they can head out to get a bite to eat, since the karaoke place is next to a pretty big shopping center. It's the perfect 1-2 punch." Did she really just say serenading each other? "It's perfect, I'll start getting the arrangements ready. Don't worry about Kyoka, I'll handle the expenses myself. Eyes, and we need to pick out a super cute outfit that'll knock Midoriya off of his feet. Eyes, oh, I should have my mother let me borrow one of the cars so you guys can be chauffeured to the karaoke studio. Eyes." Jirou shouted, gaining the two's attention. "What is it, do you not like the plan?" "Actually I kinda do," she replied bashfully, twisting her left earphone jack on her fingers. "But we still don't know if Izuku even likes me." "Oh, don't worry about that, I already got it taken care of." Yaoyorozu responded, surprising both of the other girls. "You do?" "Yup, I have it on very good authority that Midoriya has feelings for you." "And how do you know that exactly?" Ashido inquired. Although she herself decided to just go straight to the source and ask the green-haired boy directly, she was curious as to where Yaoyorozu got the information. "I asked Todoroki to do him a favor. He said he owed me one and got back to me an hour later, saying that Midoriya did in fact have romantic feelings for Jirou. He also told me that he won't tell anyone else and that he'll help in any way that he can." "Great, now Todoroki is in on this," Jirou sighed internally. Even though he was a good friend of Midoriya and a pretty stand-up guy from what she could tell, it was still unsettling knowing that another person was in on the plan as well. Luckily their heterochromatic classmate seemed like the kind of guy who had no problem keeping a secret. "Alright then." Ashido jumped up off of her bed, grabbing her phone. "Now all we need to do is for Kyoka to pull the trigger and we're good." "What is it like now?" "Yup, no time like the present, dude. Midoriya and Kirishima should be back from the school gym in about 15 minutes. As soon as he gets back you can ask him out." "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "It's just too soon," Jirou said with a wave of blush rushing to her face. "Don't give me that crap. This isn't the 21st century, girl. You don't have to sit around and wait for the perfect moment, just go out there and grab life by the balls." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm nervous, okay?" Jirou shouted out, her face now as red as a tomato. "Oh, is that all?" Ashido responded with a laugh. They failed to notice the vein emerging on the side of Jirou's face. "Look, do you just want me to set it up? I can just send him a text." "No. I'll do it myself, alright. I just need time." "No problem, you have until tomorrow night though." "What? If you don't do it by then I'll be the one to do it." Fine, the purple-haired girl sighed, knowing that Ashido is more than bold enough to do so. "Awesome. Yeah, Momo, you set up everything and make sure the arrangements are in order. I'll start picking out outfits. Kyoka can borrow some of my clothes if she wants." "Oh my, this is so exciting. I'll call the karaoke studio right now and reserve a room." Yaoi Rozu chirped, simultaneously pulling out her cell phone. "We're really doing this, huh?" It was that time once again for the students of Class 1A. Practical training on Thursdays always seemed like the highlight of the week for would-be heroes. What was even better was that today's training was going to be led by All Might and Midnight. Their homeroom teacher, Shota Izawa, called in sick, leaving their homeroom as more of a free period for them to just relax. So All Might began as he brought his class back to attention. "Since this is going to be our last combat-focused training for the next 4 weeks, we have something special planned for you guys today." His words caused everyone's ears to perk up in anticipation. When it came to unpredictability, the UA staff were masters at it. Changing things up at the last minute always managed to keep the students on their toes. "Today, you will be participating in a 4-way, no-holds-bar capture flag exercise," the retired hero continued. A few cheers came from Kirishima and, surprisingly enough, Bakugo. "The teams have already been selected, but to make things fair, you will not know who you're up against when the exercise begins. For now, grab your hero costumes and make your way down to Training Ground Gamma. Midnight and myself will be there to greet you shortly." "Oh man, this is going to be awesome," Kirishima said to Midoriya as the two walked over to the wall to grab their suits. "Yeah, luckily my new suit was finished in time. Sorry about that again. I feel bad that you had to waste most of your day yesterday getting repairs done." "It's fine, it was kind of my fault anyway," the quirk inheritor replied with a grin on his face. Unbeknownst to the two boys, they were being watched by another pair of students. "Just remember, Kyoka. You have until the end of the day, haha. I know, Mina, just chill out and let me take care of it, please." Jirou responded, putting her hands in her pockets while trying to keep up her trademark aloof face. "Sorry, but this is just so exciting. I'm rooting for you, girl." "Whatever." "Well, Midoriya, I'm liking the new suit, man," Kaminari half shouted while gazing at the green-haired boy's new appearance. Unfortunately for Midoriya, Hatsune decided to go off the deep end yesterday and almost completely redesigned his suit. Much to his dismay, a representative from the school's design company just so happened to be present for their brainstorming session and gave the go-ahead on almost every last idea the pink-haired inventor could come up with. Although the base layer was still similar, that was essentially as far as it went. All of the white in his jumpsuit had been replaced with black and was now more form-fitting. His arm and leg bracers were now slimmer, lighter, blacked out, and made out of a material that the support corps student dubbed Flex Steel that was apparently bulletproof. Along with all of that, his mask was completely changed. It only covered his mouth and ears while still having his signature green bunny ear design, but the mouthguard was made of the same material as the bracers. Despite the drastic changes, the green-haired boy was very satisfied with the finished product. The suit felt sturdier, lighter, and it was more aesthetically pleasing. At least it was according to Ashido, who was present during the makeover. The Pinkette even managed to egg on Hatsune with a few ideas of her own. "He's right, Midoriya. You look like one of those old-school superhero comics," Sato chimed in. A blush forming on the quirk inheritor's face. He still wasn't used to receiving compliments of any sort. "Alright, my lovelies, here is how this is all going to work." Midnight spoke to the students. "You will be split into groups of 4 and directed to starting locations. Once you hear the horn, you will make your way to the target, which will be a blue flag with white stripes on the roof of the tallest building in the training ground. You will also have a 30-minute time limit for your round. If no one reaches the flag in time, then that's just how it is. However, if there is only one person left standing, that student is the victor." "What did you mean by left standing, sensei?" Hagakure blurted out, raising an invisible hand. "Like All Might said before you guys came out here, this is essentially a free-for-all. Anything goes, as long as you don't cause any major injury to another student." The pro hero takes a moment to glance in the direction of Bakugo, eliciting a huff from the blonde-haired teen. "We will be watching on the monitors, and if we deem you unable to continue, then you're done." Whispers began erupting between the students, a few laughs and chuckles here and there, but the general tone was the same. Izuku looked around the class for a minute, trying to process the information. It was bad enough that he had to go up against 3 of his classmates at once, but he wouldn't know who he was up against until the moment arrived. On top of that, everyone had the same objective. As he continued scanning around the class, Midnight began passing out slips of paper with numbers written on them. Upon receiving his paper, he looked at it to see the number 34 written on it. These don't match your student numbers, so you won't know who is who. Now that everyone has their numbers, make your way to the areas. The last digit of your number is what group you will be held in, so hurry up and get to the appropriate area. She ordered the students. When he made it to his designated holding area, Midoriya was surprised to see who he would be temporarily sharing the space with. He looked around to see Ida, Todoroki, Yaoyorozu and Bakugo all giving him the same confused look. Well, we are the top 5 students in the class. Todoroki started. It's reasonable that they wouldn't want all of us in the same round. I agree with Todoroki's assessment. Ida added. This is bullshit. I wanted to go up against all of you fuckers. Bakugo shouted in his usual manner. A sigh coming from Yaoyorozu. Before Midoriya could put in his 2 cents, the loudspeakers turned on, echoing All Might's voice through the area. Alright students. Numbers 11, 22, 34 and 43, make your way to your assigned start point and wait for the horn. Well, it looks like I'm up first. Midoriya started with a small grin. Good luck out there. Ida said to him. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu gave him a thumbs up before he made his way out the door. Why the hell did I have to be in the first group? Jirou complained to herself as she awaited the signal. As much as she enjoyed this type of training, she wasn't too happy about the minimal prep time that she had to get herself ready. It was bad enough that she was in the dark on whoever she was up against, she still had to find a way to make it to the center of the training ground and get the flag. When the horn finally sounded, she immediately took off, making a beeline straight for the center of the area. Using her quirk, Jirou listened out for anything that was similar to footsteps or a heartbeat. Unfortunately for her, the pipes and machinery that surrounded the area were making it difficult to make out anything clearly. When she made her way to an intersection next to an alley, she looked up to see Jirou gliding directly over her with his tape. Of course, this is his element. She thought, letting out a sigh. Deciding that she didn't want to waste time standing around, she kept moving. The tallest building in the area was within her sight, but it was still a good 800 meters away, and worse was she still had no idea who the other 2 students she was against were. Jirou was probably pretty close to the flag already, seeing as he could just swing himself above the area. But if someone like Tokoyami and Uraraka were in her group, then she was at a clear disadvantage. Being limited to the ground during this exercise was not good for her. After rounding another corner, Jirou's quirk allowed her to detect the sounds of footsteps about 8 meters from where she was. She stopped in place for a moment to better make out the sound. Even amongst the clattering of the machinery, she could clearly make out that there was another person close to her on the other side of the wall to her left. Thump, thump. The sound of the person's heartbeat grew louder. Thump, thump. Something was off about it. Thump, thump. This particular heartbeat, the rhythm, was familiar to her. Thump, thump. It's like she's heard it before. Thump, thump. Isaac, the purple-haired girl, couldn't even finish her realization before a large part of the brick wall in front of her was blasted through with a gust of wind. The familiar form of Midoriya emerged through the cloud of dust, poised into a fighting position. If there was anyone that the purple-haired girl wanted to avoid a fight with, the introverted quirk inheritor standing in front of her was definitely near the top of the list. It's no secret that Midoriya was brilliant when it came to strategy. The fact that he had one for all on top of that just made him a more dangerous opponent. And now Jirou had to face that opponent with no plan and no immediate means of escape. So, how'd you find out where I was a nerd? She asked while priming her wrist amplifiers. To be honest, I didn't know it was you. I was moving above the buildings, but then I saw Jirou and decided to stay on the ground. I only caught a glimpse of your jacket before I jumped down next to the wall. I see, so I guess this means that we have to be against each other. Not necessarily. Huh? The girl responded, not being able to hide the surprise on her face. Well, Midnight Sensei did say that anything goes, and 2 heads are better than 1 in most situations. And, I'd rather not fight you. So you want to team up? At least for the moment, only one of us can actually come out on top. You're at a disadvantage because you can't move above the buildings. And I'm at a disadvantage because I can't scout people out like you can. It was hard to argue with Midoriya's reasoning. Their instructors did state that anything goes, and teaming up for a short while would be advantageous to the both of them. By working together they could cover a lot of ground with Midoriya's speed, and thanks to her earphone jacks, they could avoid someone getting the drop on them. You seriously just thought of that idea? Jirou asked. Yeah. Izuku, sometimes you freak me out with how smart you are. But in a good way. Thanks. The boy blushed at the compliment, unable to hide his face. So let's get going. She replied, trying to keep her own blush away. Without any hesitation, Jirou jumped on Midoriya's back and the 2 began to move, just like how they did the first time they were teamed up. While Midoriya was gliding above the buildings, Jirou was using her quirk to listen out for anything that sounded like another student. Luckily no one else was anywhere near them. The building was now only 300 meters away and closing. The structure was roughly 10 stories tall and stuck out like a sore thumb with its distinctive red color. With the speed at which they were moving, it would only be a few seconds before they were at the foot of the building. I'm going to try and land on one of the floors. What? How the hell are we going to do that? I'm going to jump as high as I can. When I do, use your amplifiers to blast out one of the windows. Are you crazy, Izuku? 1. That would let everyone know where and who we are. 2. It would give away our position. And 3. It's just a crazy ass idea. Trust me, kyoka. The boy said, turning his head to look at his now partner. His eyes momentarily locked with hers. Those emerald orbs display confidence and drive, but also give off a trusting vibe. Wow, I never noticed his eyes were so pretty. She thought, momentarily mesmerized by the look he briefly gave her. Just as quickly as that thought came, it was shaken away by Jirou, who was now feeling the heat well up on her face. Alright, okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. The boy shouted as he reactivated his quirk, sending the duo flying into the air. It was hard for Jirou to keep her eyes open considering the speed that they were going, but she was able to identify a large window directly in front of them and sent out a sound wave that shattered the barrier of their entry. Midoriya wasted no time in adjusting his angle and landing them safely inside of the building. Wow, 7 floors in one jump. She commented, genuinely impressed at the boy. You know, I can't wait to see what you're like when you get full control of your quirk. Kyoka. Oh shit, sorry. But don't worry, there isn't anyone around us, well on this floor at least. Is there anyone in the building? He asked. Plugging in her earphone jacks to a pillar on her right, Jirou listened out for whatever she could. While unplugged, her quirk let her hear anything within 10 meters, when connected she could easily hear up to just under 2.5 kilometers if she focused. As she listened out around the building she could make out footsteps 5 floors below. It was just one person though, and from the way their feet were moving and how close they were, they appeared to be running. So someone already made it here, huh? She thought to herself, unplugging her quirk. Bad news. What is it? There's one person on the 2nd floor and from the sound of it they're moving pretty quick. So someone made it here quickly, just like we did. Who do you think it could be? Jirou asked, trying to narrow it down herself. I doubt it's Zero. With his tape he should be able to scale the building just like we did. And I know it's not Ida-kun. Him, Todoroki, Yaoirozu, Kaken, and I were all in the same waiting area. If that's the case then it won't be Shoji, Tokoyami, Sato or Toru. All of us were in the same room too. Although I'm kind of glad to hear that hothead isn't in our group. Then we have no idea who that other person could be. Alright, so now what, nerd? We head to the top. That sounded like one of Kyoka's sound waves. Yaoirozu stated no one in particular. So she and Midoriya are in the same group. An interested Todoroki replied, glancing back at Yaoirozu. A slight grin showing on his usually stoic face. Yes, it is. What the hell are you two going on about? Bakugo shouted. It's nothing you need to concern yourself with. Todoroki responded nonchalantly. Listen here Icyhot, that is the last time that Bakugo began shouting as he went on another one of his rants. Invoking a sigh from both Iida and Yaoirozu. You've gotta be kidding me. Zero began as he extended another piece of tape, propelling himself up the side of the building. Midoriya and Jirou are working together. I know anything goes, but that's just garbage. For all intents and purposes, the tape quirk user thought that he had this competition in the bag. When it came to mobility he was at a clear advantage. That was until he saw Midoriya jumping from building to building once the exam started. The green-haired boy had the upper hand when it came to speed, but jumping ability would only get him so far. Or at least that's what Zero thought before he noticed Midoriya running towards the main building with Jirou hanging onto his back, the latter using her quirk to fire off a sound wave and gaining them entry. While Zero was scaling up the building he knew that there was a real possibility of running into the two of them once he reached the top. From what he could tell while swinging above the training area the duo landed on the 7th floor. Which meant that he only had less than a couple of minutes to reach the objective, especially with Midoriya using his full cowling. Once the tape quirk user finally reached the top of the building, he was delighted to see that he was the only person in sight. Alright, looks like I was worried for nothing. He grinned, setting his foot down onto the roof. However, the moment his toes touched the surface a series of gun turrets armed with pellet rounds raised from the ground and began firing at him. Zero tried his best to dodge the red-colored projectiles, but was getting hit on almost every part of his body. Finally deciding that he'd had enough, the black-haired teen shot another strand of tape off the side of the building and evacuated himself before becoming even more overwhelmed. I'm really glad that Zero got here just before we did. Jirou sighed, watching the gun turrets return to their position on the ground. You can say that again. Izuku replied, looking over her shoulder through the window pane of the door in front of them. So what are we going to do about those weapons? From what I can tell, they activated the moment Zero's foot touched the roof. So the entire area might have pressure plates on them. Midoriya added, the boy taking a moment to rack his brain for anything that he could do. If it was one turret, then he wouldn't have an issue taking it down, but there were at least 12 of the roofs from what he could see. He may be fast enough to dodge in one direction, but the level of maneuverability required to dodge all those weapons was near impossible. He needed to find a way to stay off of the ground, avoid the weapons' line of fire, and take them out. At best, he would have only a few seconds to accomplish this. Kyoka, how far can your sound waves reach? It depends. Sound travels differently based on the environment, but usually they're good for about 200 meters or so before the sound waves begin to dissipate. Alright. Why, what have you got in mind? It's not a guarantee, but it might be our best bet. I'm going to jump to the other side of the roof and activate the turrets. From what I could tell, they face the direction of wherever the pressure plate was activated. Once they're all above the ground and facing away from you, fire off a sound wave towards them, and that should be enough to disable them. Are you crazy? You'd be putting yourself right in their line of fire. On top of that, I can't really control how much my sound waves expand once they leave my amplifiers. You might get caught up in that. It's fine, I should have enough time to jump high enough out of the range of you. No, it's not an idiot. Has anyone ever told you that you have this bad habit of putting yourself in harm's way for no reason? Yeah, but so why don't I just use my amps to destroy the ground? Or use one of your smashes? It's way easier. You're right, but it's not really the best idea. Why not? Well, sure, you can use your amplifiers or a Delaware smash to just destroy the ground, but doing so might cause the entire ceiling to collapse. We don't know where Zero bailed off to, and the other student below us might get caught up in the rubble. On top of that, we might lose the flag and damage the roof enough to where the others won't be able to do the exercise. There's just too much collateral that way. Of course, that's what he would say. This was Midoriya that we're talking about. He managed to come up with a plan that put everyone around him in almost zero danger and minimized property damage all in one go. Despite a major part of his scheme putting himself in danger from 2 attacks at the same time, it was hard to argue that it was pretty clever. Okay, but I still don't feel good about launching one of my attacks in your direction. It's okay, Kyoka, I trust you. He said with a grin. His green eyes and bright smile caused a wave of blush to rush over the girl's face. Whatever, mophead. Let's just get this over with. Awesome. Okay, when I open the door, I'm going to jump straight to the other side. Once you see the turrets come up, just let one of your attacks go, and that should do it. He stated, Jirou nodding in affirmation to his plan. Leaning himself up against the door, Midoriya held up 3 fingers on his right hand and began counting down. Once the last finger dropped, he activated his full cowling and shot through the door, leaving a light trail of wind behind him. The gust wasn't strong enough to impede Jirou's vision, however. She kept her eyes focused on him as he landed on the opposite side of the roof. Sure enough, the second his left foot landed on the group, the turrets popped up and let out their first wave of pellets. Kyoka, now. He yelled, launching himself up roughly 13 meters into the air. With no hesitation, the purple-haired teen connected a right earphone jack to her boot and let out one of her sound waves. The force of the attack completely shattered every turret except for the one on the far left. Damn it. She said, realizing the situation. Izuku, I missed one. I got it. Manchester smash. He shouted, bringing down an axe kick onto the last weapon, leaving it in pieces. So that's the move he got Kirishima with, huh? As simple as it was, Jirou knew that she wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that anytime soon. The two took a moment to look around. All of the turrets were gone, and their objective was right before them. Somehow the flag managed to stay upright even while going through one of Jirou's attacks. Go ahead. She said, sliding her hands back into her pockets. What? This is your win. You did most of the work and came up with that crazy-ass plan of yours. You should take the flag. Jirou stated, trying her best to be nonchalant. I can't, we worked on this together, and to be honest, I wouldn't have gotten anything accomplished if you weren't here. You should take it. Nope, you go ahead. Only one of us can win, and it should be you. Why not just both grab it at the same time? Well, All Might and Midnight Sensei only said that to win you needed to grab the flag and that anything goes. They never said that more than one person couldn't do it. Well, technically I guess you're right. The boy's logic was sound. So, at the same time, sure. Alright, on 3. 1, 2, 3. They both said in unison, grabbing the blue and white striped flag at the exact same moment. A silence permeated the air around them for a brief few seconds before the loudspeakers began echoing Midnight's voice across the area. Winners. Izuku, Midoriya, and kyoka Jiro. All participants, please return to the screening room at once. Well, would you look at that, looks like we won. Midoriya said with his signature All Might style grin. Yeah, I guess we did. This is still a load of crap. Jirou complained while taking off his helmet, still in pain from the barrage of pellets that he took a few minutes ago during the exercise. Tell me about it. Jiro agreed, apparently he was the other student participating in their group. But hey, at least you guys made it to the top of the roof. I had to sprint all the way across the training area and only made it to the 6th floor when I heard that the match was called. Good point. But to be honest, I was still surprised at you two. The tape quirk user gestured over to Midoriya and Jirou. When I saw that you had teamed up I got confused. I knew that it was a no-holds-bar, but I wasn't expecting that at all. Let alone for the both of you to win. Well, that wasn't the intention of the training. Midnight interjected. When All Might and I saw that you two both grabbed the flag at the same moment we didn't really know what to do. Well, what's done is done. The retired hero chimed in. It just sets a precedent for the other students once they start their rounds. In any case, all of you performed very well. Young Jiro, your maneuverability was quite impressive seeing as you were the first one to actually reach the building before anyone else. Young Jirou, as was expected you had no issues with the terrain and you did well at taking minimal damage from the turrets. As for you two, All Might paused as he looked at Jirou and Midoriya, he gave focus more toward his successor than the other team. Your team-up plan was well executed. However, I wasn't too fond of your idea to just throw young Midoriya into the line of fire like that. Other than that, it was a great showing for all of you. Thank you, sir. They all said with a bow. So who's up next, sensei? Midoriya asked. Up next is Bakugo, Kaminari, Uraraka, and Asui. Midnight responded. All of you are welcome to stay and watch your head back to the classroom and do some studying, it's up to you. Unsurprisingly, all of them elected to stay in the viewing room, taking seats to watch how the rest of their classmates would fare. Jirou and Midoriya sat next to each other despite the ample amount of available seats. Interesting. Midnight thought with a devilish smirk on her face as she watched the two students pair up. I guess that's why they were so keen on being partners. Of all the things that Toru could have done, was pulling Iida's pants down really the best way to catch him off guard? Jirou sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose, trying her best to erase the image of the engine quirk user's underwear out of her brain. Yeah, I don't really know what to think about that one. Midoriya replied. Class was out for the day for the heroes. The rest of the training exercises went by smoothly for the other students. Bakugo had managed a relatively easy victory in his group. Tokoyami won his and Todoroki's group after using Dark Shadow to scale the side of the building and throw himself over the turrets. Aoi Rozu's group did not have a winner after time expired due to all four of the students getting into a battle in the street next to the building. And in the biggest surprise of the day, Hagakure won her group after distracting Iida by pantsing him from behind, giving the invisible girl enough time to make a mad dash to the turrets, somehow avoiding the first wave of gunfire and grabbing the flag for herself. As the two students were making their way back to the dorms, Jirou could feel her heart ready to beat out of her chest. To say that she was nervous would be an understatement. After their training round, the purple-haired girl considered asking him if he was free on Saturday right then and there when they were relaxing in the viewing room, but she quickly realized that the timing was not right at all. There were too many people around, and although she wouldn't admit it, when the moment of truth came she chickened out. Right now it is a different story. The two of them were alone, finally. There was no one else in the hall and nothing to cause a distraction. Hey Izuku, have you got anything planned this weekend? She asked, twisting her left earphone jack on her finger to calm her nerves. This weekend? The boy replied. Suddenly his mind went back to his last conversation with Ishido. No, I don't have anything, nothing at all. He stuttered out, failing at controlling his words. Oh, well, did you maybe? Hey, you with the green hair. Jirou was interrupted by a familiar voice. When the two turned around to see who it was, they were surprised to see the peculiar ruby-skinned girl from the other day running towards them. Where the hell did she come from? What the heck does she want? Jirou asked, the boy only responding with a curious shrug. It only took a few seconds before the female student in question was standing in front of them, panting from running all the way down the hall. You're Izuku Midoriya, right? She asked the quirk inheritor. Yeah. Awesome. We didn't formally greet each other the other day when I bumped into you, sorry about that again. But I'm Hayatora, I work for the school newspaper, and I was wondering if you'd let me interview you for my article. What? The boy said, failing to hide his shock. You want to interview me? Heck yeah. You're one of the most talked about kids in school. A lot of people want the scoop on the wild child first year who not only survived a run-in with a hero killer but took down a Yakuza boss. I don't really know what to say. He responded sheepishly, bumping his two index fingers together. Please. The red-skinned girl leaned into the boy, getting in more than a little close. I'm trying to get an article published on the front page which has never been done by a second year. Doing this for me would really help me out. Okay. Midoriya nervously replied. As much as he wanted to decline, he just couldn't say no to a person in need. Ah, you're the best. Tora squealed as she hugged the boy, causing Midoriya's face to go bright red. Ahem, Jirou coughed, trying to get the attention of the person currently bearing her hugging her friend. Oh sorry, I didn't notice you there. Oh wait, you're Jirou, right? Yeah. Oh my, I loved your performance at the cultural festival. Your voice is absolutely beautiful. Thanks. Ooh, do you think that you can do an interview with me too? It'd be great for the performing arts section of the paper this month. Oh wait, I can just interview two of you together. Kill two birds with one stone, you know. She said with a grin, revealing a set of elongated canines. Really? The purple-haired girl inquired. Of course. Having the first ever interview with two future heroes would just be amazing. Come on, what do you say? I guess so, the purple-haired girl shrugged. Alright. Tora cheered one more time before grabbing Midoriya by the arm. Before we do anything we need to go back to the journalism club's office and get everything set up with the editor, plus she really wants to meet you. It won't take longer than 15 minutes, I promise. Before Midoriya or Jirou could even respond, he was quickly whisked away by the red-skinned girl, leaving a cloud of dust in their path. Hey, we're the Cable Ears. The unmistakable voice of Bakugo shouted, gaining Jirou's attention. Can I help you? She asked, wondering what he possibly could want with her. Come with me, we need to have a little talk. He said, as he waved her on, not taking any time even to look in her direction. Why do I have the feeling that I'm not going to like this? When it came to Katsuki Bakugo, Class 1A's resident hot-headed explosion quirk user, Jirou did what she could to actively avoid interacting with him as much as possible. Not only was he prideful, rude, and loud, the blonde-haired boy was just genuinely no fun to be around. Ever since first arriving in the UA, she knew that he was the type of person only interested in being a hero just for the sake of being number one. The type of person only interested in the title and recognition. If she had to make a comparison, then it would be simple. Midoriya was more like All Might, while Bakugo favored Endeavor. How Kirishima and Kaminari could stand being around him so much was a complete mystery to her. What was a bigger mystery to her was the situation she currently found herself in. 10 minutes ago Bakugo had told her to follow him, lead her back to the dorms, walked her all the way up to the roof, and was now staring at her with his usual scowl. For some reason, however, the look in his eyes was slightly more intense than normal. The dusty blonde was generally pretty easy to read, since he only ever expressed emotions ranging from fury to anger, but this time was different. Look, I don't know what you brought me up here for, boo. You know, don't you? He spat out with the usual venom in his voice. What? She responded. Don't play dumb, Cable Ears, you know what I mean. You know about shitty Deku and One for All. As much as Jirou wanted to end the conversation right there and leave, she knew that it was not going to happen. 1. Because Bakugo was blocking the only exit off of the roof. 2. Because she knew that this interaction they were about to have was going to have to happen sooner or later. And what if I do? Figures. That idiot can't keep a damn secret to save his life. Is there a problem with me knowing? Yeah, you're just some extra who's in on possibly one of the biggest secrets in the country. I don't like that very much. Well, Midoriya and All Might don't seem to have a problem with it all. So, as far as I'm concerned, your opinion doesn't really matter. Look, if that's all you wanted to talk about, then you got your answer. I'm out of here. So how'd you find out? What, did shitty Deku blab about it while the two were acting all buddy-buddy? That's really none of your business. Now move aside. I can't believe that jackass let someone else find out, what a loser. The blonde boy's words caused a bit of irritation in Jirou. What's your problem with Izuku anyway? Jirou asked, not really knowing where the question came from. He told me that you two actually used to be friends when you were kids. What did he ever do to you that was so bad to warrant so much bad blood? He looked down on me. What? She responded, genuinely confused at his reply. You heard me. Ever since we were little, that loser's always been looking down on me. Always trying to help me out when I don't need it, taunting me, thinking I'm weak. Even though I had a quirk that was awesome and he was a quirkless loser, he always thought I was someone who needed his rescue. You can't be serious. I am, and now that Motherfucker has All Might's quirk and I can't stand it. This couldn't have been it. This really couldn't have been the reason why he acted that way towards Midoriya. Confusion washed over Jirou with each passing second. Ever since the two had become friends, Midoriya had mentioned a few times about having been bullied for not being born with a quirk. Unfortunately, it was no surprise to Jirou that it happened. Although quirkless people were a rarity, they were almost always treated like second-class citizens. Given how Midoriya acted when first arriving at UA, he no doubt received a fair share of that treatment. However, the main culprit for the green-haired boy's suffering was now standing a mere 3 meters away from her. This guy, Bakugo. The guy who during their first practical training session almost killed Midoriya, looked her right in the eye and told her that he hated her friend so much because he looked down on him for trying to help him. The same Midoriya that has time and time again put his own life at risk to save others. The same Midoriya who was deemed worthy enough by All Might himself to receive one for all. That was impossible, there was something more to this. She doubted that she'd be able to dive deeper into it, but that didn't make her any less irritated. Wow, that's really how you feel, huh? In any case, don't get in my way. I have a score to settle with that green-haired loser, and I don't need you butting in. He said, pointing in her direction. You know, I finally got you back, Jirou. Jirou chuckled. What? You're threatened by him. You view Izuku as someone weaker than you, but everyone else disagrees. He's more liked by others, respected, and has gotten more praise than you ever since we started going here. On top of that, he's gotten exponentially better with his quirk while you haven't. As much as Jirou's instincts were telling her to stop right there, her mouth for some reason kept going. Pretty much everyone in class has made leaps and bounds with their quirks and overall abilities, but you haven't. What the hell did you s? Everyone is getting better and improving while you just stayed the same angry ole Bakugo. On top of that, the only people who liked you enough were the League of Villains. They liked you so much that because of you they almost killed some of our classmates just to try and recruit you. Must be nice to feel so appreciated. If you ask me, you're more cut out to be a villain than a hero. You've got 5 seconds to take back what you just said or else I won't, so you can keep your empty threats. Jirou said with a bit of smugness as she placed her hands in her jacket pocket and went back to her trademark aloof face. Now step aside, Firecracker, I have some stuff to take care of. With a quick bump of the shoulders, the purple-haired girl moved her now increasingly furious classmate out of the way and walked through the door, not waiting to see the boy's reaction to her words. I'm probably going to regret doing that later on. She thought while quickly making her way down the steps. Taking a moment to fully process what she had just done, the earphone jack user leaned up against a wall to catch her breath. What was that about? Why the hell did she do that? She literally just stood up to probably the most frightening guy in class just because he had some pointless personal grudge with Midoriya. She already made it a point to avoid the dusty blonde whenever possible, but after that she was now considering taking extra precautions to not cross his path again anytime soon. She sighed before taking out her cell phone, opening the text app and scrolling to her most recent conversations. She wasn't sure if it was the adrenaline in her body or what, but she opened the chat between her and Midoriya. Microphone. We need to talk. ASAP. All Might. Sure, kyoka. I just got back to my room, but I can meet you in the common area. Microphone. Don't bother. I'll be at your door in a couple of minutes. All Might. Okay. The wave of emotions going through Jirou's body right now was difficult to describe. Minutes ago she had just told off Bakugo for no discernible reason at all, and now she was standing in front of Midoriya's door, hesitant to knock. She knew he was in there, because of her quirk she could hear the sound of his pencil writing down in his notebook, but for some reason she just couldn't bring herself to place her hand on the door. The combination of nerves and adrenaline were still very much in effect for her. This would be the first time that she ever set foot inside the boy's room. After a deep sigh she finally let her hand tap away at the door. "See, come in," the boy said, startled at the rapping at his chamber door. Upon entering the room, Jirou was met with the familiar sight of all of Midoriya's All Might memorabilia. His room was practically a shrine to the former symbol of peace. Has it ever struck you as odd that you have your entire room dedicated to All Might Sensei? It's kind of strange to have posters and toys of someone that you know on a personal level. I just really respect him, Midoriya replied bashfully. Sorry if you were busy, I can come back later. No, it's fine. I just got back anyway. Oh yeah, so what happened after that tour girl ran off with you? She took me back to the journalism club's office and had me meet their editor. Apparently she's friends with Miro-senpai and really wanted to talk to me. That's not too bad. Yeah, after a quick chat she told me that we're good to do that interview for the school paper either next Thursday or Friday. I told her that I'd have to check with you first, you know, if we're still up for it. Yeah, that's fine. Either day is good for me. Okay, I'll let her know that we can do it next Thursday. Cool. So what did you want to talk about? Jirou sighed again for what felt like the 1000th time that day. She sat on his bed to make herself more comfortable. Well, I just had a pretty interesting conversation with a certain hot-headed blonde asshole. Have you talked to Kaken? Yeah. She replied, only to be met with Midoriya's mumbling about what that could possibly mean. Even though she possessed super hearing, it was difficult for her to keep up with everything that he was saying. The only real words she could make out were unexpected, one for all, future, and development. Izuku, chill out. Sorry, it's just never mind. So what happened? Well, he took me up to the roof and straight up asked me if I knew about one for all. I told him that I did, he got all cranky about it, then I told him off for being such an asshole to you. Bottom line is I'm pretty sure I'm on his shite list now. So if I get accidentally blown up during class one day, you know why. She said nonchalantly, leaning back onto the boy's bed. She took a second to notice the astonishment on Midoriya's face. A reaction that she was expecting. But that's not the only thing I wanted to talk to you about actually. What's the other thing? So I didn't really plan on doing this in this way, or at all to be honest. But I tried to do it earlier, and then you got scooped up by that Tora girl. Then Bakugo happened, and I'm still not over that, and now I'm all worked up, and she was now sitting up, looking Midoriya directly in the eyes. She paused for a brief moment, realizing all the stress of what she was about to do was finally hitting her. The last time she felt this anxious was when she asked the classmate sitting in front of her about one for all. Calm down Kyoka, it's just one question. What I'm trying to say is Izuku, do you want to go on a date with me this Saturday? There, she said it. It happened, what's done is done, she said it, and now there was no going back. After the words came out of her mouth, the purple-haired girl immediately looked down to hide her face, not sure of what to expect. The room grew silent for a moment, silent enough to isolate the sound of Midoriya's heart, which was now beating faster than she had thought possible. It almost sounded like he was having a heart attack. She looked up at the green-haired boy, only to be met with what was now essentially a statue. His face was pale, his body was completely rigid, and Jirou wasn't sure if he was looking at her or through her. Izuku? Hey, are you okay there? She inquired while waving her hands in front of his face. I'm sorry Kyoka, I think I blacked out just now. The green-haired boy chuckled, finally snapping back to his senses. For a second there, it sounded like you asked me if I wanted to go out on a date. I did. Yeah, super crazy I know. He laughed again. Izuku, like, why on earth would you want to ask me out? The whole concept is totally crazy. Mophead, I mean, I know Ishido-san and Todoroki-kun asked about you already this week. But to be honest I thought that they were just joking around. Like, why would you want to ask me of all people out on a date? Sure we're good friends and all, and I think you're very attractive and you're really fun to be around, and, Izuku, calm down. Jirou placed her hands on the boy's shoulders in an effort to snap him out of his mumbling. Look, I know this is kind of out of the blue and all, but I need an answer. Do you want to go on a date with me? Once again words had managed to fail him. The only thing he could do was let out a small squeak as he gave his answer. Yes. Ishido yelled, startling both of her classmates. I can't believe he actually said yes. Operation Kyoka and Midoriya together was a success. She continued, jumping up and down her tactily decorated bed while holding out a victory sign with her right hand. This is so exciting. Yaoirozu added. I'm surprised he actually agreed to it that quickly. Well for a moment I thought that he was going to have a heart attack, but yeah he said yes. Jirou was doing her best to hide the blush on her face, but knew that it was a pointless effort. This is so awesome. So what happened after that? Come on spill it. Ishido chirped, failing to hide her excitement at the news. Nothing really. It got kinda awkward so I told him that I'd give him the details later and left. In any case, this is great. We already have the reservation set up and ready to go. Saturday is going to go off without a hitch. Yeah, but there's just one other thing. Jirou said while pointing one of her earphone jacks at Ishido. A bead of sweat coming down the back of the Pinkette's head. Izuku told me that the two of you had a nice little talk the other day. Care to explain? Oh was Pinkette's only response before she got an earphone jack to the neck. She made a mental note to remember to get Midoriya back for not keeping his mouth shut. Thanks for watching my video and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description, see you next time, till then sayonara.